Hello and welcome to Football Daily, where today we're giving you a list of 10 players who deserve a second chance in their career. Whether it's a dodgy move, a failed transfer or a lack of playing time, these 10 footballers have had a bright start to the 1920 campaign. 10. Oscar. January will mark Oscar's 3-year anniversary in the Chinese Super League, and being just 28 years old, it's a travesty that European clubs have missed out on what could be his prime years. Joining Shanghai SIPG for an Asian record £60 million, no one has created more chances per game in the division than Oscar since his arrival. So far his tally reads 22 goals and 37 assists in 76 CSL matches, and he's looking to secure his second title with the Red Eagles in as many seasons. While some players may take their foot off the pedal once raking in the riches in the Far East, Oscar has kept up his industrious work rate that former manager Jose Mourinho appreciated. In fact, his 2.4 tackles and interceptions per game since he arrived in China tops 2 of his 4 seasons at Stamford Bridge. With his last Brazil appearance coming in 2015, Oscar has previously claimed he's open to a return to Europe. But with his wages being a reported £400,000 a week, it's unlikely a top side would be able to afford him, with a move to Inter apparently breaking down in the summer. 9. Mikel Merino. Joining Newcastle on loan from Dortmund in 2017, the Spaniard looked finally to be the answer to the Magpies' midfield woes. It seemed to be a no-brainer to make it permanent for £8 million, and they did so on the 13th of October after he started 6 of their first 7 games of the season. It was a different story for Moreno after the new year though, making just 3 league starts in the remaining 5 months of the campaign after a back injury and an eventful loss of form derailed his season. Moving back to Spain with Sociedad, Mikel Merino has regained his confidence in the Basque country. Along with Zubeldia at centre-half and Illarramendi in midfield, it's their collective job to dictate the game and recycle possession, with all 3 averaging 50-plus passes a game. But unlike the elegant Ilara, Merino has also been tasked with winning possession back, averaging around 3.3 tackles and interceptions a game, whilst his 6'2" stature is crucial for proving a presence in midfield, with no Sociedad player averaging more than his 5.4 aerial duels won a game. With Barcelona reportedly keeping a keen eye on his €50 million release clause in the summer, perhaps a move to an elite club is on the cards sooner rather than later. And thankfully for him, Newcastle aren't in that bracket. 8. Nikola Vlasic. Everton's transfer window in 2017 was hectic. Around £140 million was spent to fill a Romelu Lukaku-sized hole, as well as fix other areas around the squad. Amongst the chaos, 3 players 21 and under were signed: Sandro, Henry Onyekuru and Nikola Vlasic. All 3 have departed the club already. Sandro, the most senior of the trio, headed back to Spain after scoring a mammoth 1 goal for the club. Onyekuru, who was also chased by Arsenal, failed to get a work permit, had a stellar season in Turkey and is now at Monaco. Vlasic's story isn't any different, bar a decent spell in the Europa League for the Toffees, and he looks set to return to a top European side given his form in Moscow. A loan switch made permanent for £14 million, Vlasic currently has 5 goals and 3 assists in 13 starts for CSKA, pretty close to being in line with his XG of 0.5 goals and assists per 90. 3.2 shots per game, 2.5 key passes and 2.8 dribbles per match are also elite numbers given the Croat is being deployed in a central midfield role, according to Who Scored. With a Champions League goal against Real Madrid already in his locker, don't be surprised to see his tally rise against other massive sides in the coming years. 7. Alexander Sorloth. With a population that is nearly half of London's, the young talent coming through Norway is the brightest it's been since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Tore Andre Flo emerged onto the scene. Christoph Azure, Sander Berg, Martin Odegard, more on him later, Erling Haaland and Alexander Sorloth are all 23 or younger. A January signing for Crystal Palace in 2018, the Eagles were desperate for goal-scoring reinforcements given Christian Benteke, their only senior out-and-out striker, scored the same number of Premier League goals as James Tompkins in more appearances, a grand total of 3. Standing at 6'5", side note his international wonderkid strike partner Haaland is 6'4", Sorloth was the star of the Danish league at the time of his departure, averaging 0.87 expected goals and assists in his 19 appearances for Midtjylland and completing nearly 2 dribbles a game too. Unfortunately, it didn't translate well to English football, scoring just once in 20 games for Palace in the Carabao Cup against Swansea. This season, however, he's been regaining his form for Trabzonspor, averaging a goal involvement a game for the Turkish outfit, keeping them in the title hunt. 1.4 key passes a game, 1.3 dribbles and 2.9 shots inside the box per 90, the Norwegian giant has been unstoppable in the Super League. And if the goals dry up once again in Croydon, Hodgson should consider bringing back Sorloth for a second bite of the cherry. 6. Teemu Bakayoko. No question about it, Bakayoko's move to Chelsea for £40 million was a disaster. Despite remaining a perfectly fine ball winner in West London, his dribble numbers, which made him so unique as a DM, halved. As confidence dropped and memes rised, it looked as if the writing was on the wall, and Chelsea were ready to cut their losses. And where do European rejects usually end up? AC Milan, where he made 31 league appearances on loan, getting his dribble numbers back to 2 a game, being fouled nearly 2.3 times a match, and most importantly, restoring his confidence. It wasn't enough to convince Lamps or the new-look Chelsea technical staff though, as Bakayoko was sent out on loan again, this time to the club where he won Ligue 1, where he was in the Champions League squad of the season, and most importantly, under a manager who trusted him, Leonardo Jardim. And safe to say he looks like he's regained the quality which made Chelsea drop £40 million on him in the first place. 4.9 tackles and interceptions per game, 2.3 dribbles, the highest in Monaco's squad, and no one is getting fouled more in Ligue 1 so far this season. At just 25 years of age, there's still plenty of time for Bakayoko to establish himself as one of Europe's elite defensive midfielders. 5. Andrea Belotti. Before Chelsea signed Alvaro Morata in the summer of 2017, Demarzio reported that the Blues were after the Spaniard or Andrea Belotti, who had just come off a 26-goal season, with the Rooster in lethal form as he outperformed his XG by 5. With his suitors deterred by his fixed £100 million price tag, Belotti remained a Torino player and had a down year, scoring just 10 goals and missing almost 2 months worth of football with 2 separate knee injuries. In the last 2 seasons, however, Il Gallo seems to be returning to clucking good form. Despite not reaching 5'11", the size and pace of the Italian has been a cause of chaos for Serie A defenders. In fact, in the 18-19 season, no player in Serie A drew more yellow cards than Belotti, with an absurd 29, 11 more than the second highest Papu Gomez. The trend has also continued this year, as he's currently fouled 3.3 times a game, the second highest in Serie A so far this season. Not to mention he's back to goal-scoring ways too, as from March 2019 to the time of writing, only Aubameyang and Lewandowski have scored more than Belotti in Europe's top 5 leagues. Although he didn't really have the chance to move in the first place, he definitely deserves to have a crack at one of Europe's elite sides sooner rather than later. 4. Yannick Carrasco. After scoring in the 2016 Champions League final, becoming the first Belgian to do so, it looked like the world was at Yannick Carrasco's feet. With the World Cup on the horizon 2 years after that equaliser, you'd have expected a 24-year-old Carrasco to be nearing optimum performance as a winger at Atletico Madrid. Instead, he was at Dalian Yifang, awaiting a call-up to be played as a left wing-back. Given that Carrasco managed just 8 league starts in his last year in the Spanish capital, it was unsurprising that the Belgian was seeking a move. But switching Europe for the Far East came as a shock for those following his career. His numbers weren't too bad despite limited appearances, but given Chinese multinational conglomerate Wanda's involvement in Atletico Madrid and Dalian, it was a shady move from the beginning. And what a surprise, Carrasco is absolutely killing it. After a rocky start when he lost 8-0 on his debut, the flying winger has taken the new season more seriously than his first campaign, going from 1 key pass to 2 a game, upping his dribbles per 90 to 4 and more than doubling his goal tally to 15 already, despite playing 3 games fewer. Perhaps he's seen Paulinho return to Barcelona with some success and is pining for his own move. And needless to say, he hasn't minced his words when chatting to Belgian outlet HLN, saying, "I miss Europe every day, but I have a contract in China. The club hasn't allowed me to leave, but now it's different. I can do it and I hope to do so if something concrete materialises." Expect to see the mercurial winger terrorising fullbacks in a top 5 league very soon. 3. Joseph Martinez. Despite the MLS being more commonly known as a superstar's retiring ground, teams around the league have been targeting young players in the Americas and castaway talents from Europe in recent years. We've seen Miguel Almiron get a big money move to Newcastle, and sooner rather than later, we might be seeing MLS record breaker Joseph Martinez cross the Atlantic once more. Making the journey from Caracas to Bern as an 18-year-old, Martinez spent 3 seasons in Switzerland before making his foray into the big leagues, joining Serie A's Torino for €3 million. Averaging an XG of just 0.34 per 90, resulting in a mere 13 goals in 75 games, at 23 he was already facing the prospect of taking a step down. Little did he know at the time, a club which had only just formed was ready to propel him into the spotlight. Atlanta came calling and Joseph Martinez had a fresh start, one that has seen him evolve into one of the deadliest strikers the MLS has ever seen. In just 96 appearances, he's found the net 87 times, holds the record for the most consecutive games scored in with 15, and had arguably the most successful individual season ever by winning the league's MVP, All-Star Games MVP, Golden Boot, and the MLS Cup Final MVP. At just 26 years of age, the Venezuelan still has plenty of time to make his mark in Europe, and given his goal record in the past 3 MLS seasons, you wouldn't bet against him. 2. Martin Odegard. For a 16-year-old, joining one of the biggest clubs in world football is always going to propel them into the spotlight. Even though signing for Real Madrid is probably what most think of Odegaard's career highlight thus far, his time away from the club has been the most beneficial for this prestigious young talent. Still at the tender age of 20, Odegard is currently on loan at Sociedad alongside fellow entry Mikel Merino. And with 4 goal involvements in his opening 9 games, as well as being amongst the top 5 chance creators in the Liga so far this campaign, it seems to be another shrewd loan move before he gets a real chance of becoming a Los Blancos favourite. His time in Vitesse signalled that Madrid's youngest ever debutant might still have a huge career ahead of him. With his 3.5 key passes and 2.9 dribbles per game, alongside 9 goals and 12 assists, showing the world that he is still undoubtedly a wonder kid. Winning La Liga's Player of the Month in September, will Odegard get his chance in Madrid, or should he force a move to somewhere else, where he'll be more appreciated? Let us know in the poll above. 1. Gabriel Barbosa. Following the footsteps of Neymar, Gabriel Barbosa's senior career started at Santos, just as they were looking for a new talisman after the Copa Libertadores winner and future superstar had departed for Barcelona. For the Santos fans, their faith wasn't without justification, as Gabigol had scored 600 times in the youth ranks since he was 8 years old. An 11-year stint in Brazil came to an end when Inter came calling, paying €29.5 million for the striker, who was a Golden Boy nominee at the time. What followed for Gabigol in Europe, however, was a disaster. In 2 seasons, including a loan spell at Benfica, the youngster managed just 156 minutes of football, with no notable injuries during this period. At just 21, it was time for Gabigol to return home, joining Santos on a year-long loan, a bold decision that he hasn't regretted. After an impressive 18-goal season which crowned him as the league's top scorer, Inter opted to keep Gabriel in Brazil, with a switch to Flamengo, a 6-hour drive away from his boyhood club. Since the move, Gabigol has been in scintillating form, averaging a goal a game with fantastic underlying numbers to back it up. 3.8 shots per 90, with 2.3 of them coming from inside the box, and a cool 81% pass completion, as well as 1.5 dribbles a game, indicating Gabigol's game is neat and well-rounded. Despite links to Crystal Palace and West Ham, recent developments indicate that Flamengo look favourites to secure his signature for a mere €18.5 million, with a 20 to 25% sell-on clause. Inter's €10 million loss on Gabigol could be Flamengo's gain, as European clubs could be queuing up to take another gamble on the 23-year-old. So those were our 10 players who deserve a second chance in the game, but have we missed anyone else out? Please let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, why not click on the video on screen right now for more, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Bye.